receiving help and doing is you are only returning it. That is not. Correct thing is even without that person asking if you help him, that is a higher form. That's a better system. Quid pro quo means you do something for me, I am doing something back to you.
Yes, sir. This thing is happening now, and corporate companies and executive at the government level are coming to an understanding.
That is not called quid pro quo, it is called collusion. The collusion means where the government servant and the chief executive of a corporate, both of them actually agree. Supposing, I'll give you a case. The CEO comes, he wants some land, but that land is, some portion is government land, some portion is private land. Private land he has to acquire and he has to pay a certain price. Government land, the price has to be fixed. On what basis will the government land price be fixed? The officer may be able to get some money under the table and give a lower price. You understand? Or he may show the land valueless by saying it is rocky land, not cultivable, not fit for cultivable, and deflate the value of the land. So then they are both colluding with one another. So that collusion leads to corruption. You understand? So that is not called quid pro quo, because in this one, only one party is receiving it, isn't it? He is not giving anything in return. Because from the other person's point of view, he paid the money for the land, he got the land. What did he get from him? Nothing he has got from him.
Thank you.
Sir, my name is Vijayendra Babu, sir, and I am an electrical engineer. And my doubt is, previously there is not, most of the politicians, they are not careerly related to the business link, sir. They are basically service oriented. But if you take...
Be a little clear and slow. Let me follow what you are saying. Yeah.
Previously, the politicians, politicians, they are not careerly linked to their business, sir, their businesses. They are service oriented. But
not able to hear him clearly. కొంచెము నాకు వినేటట్లు చెప్పండి కరెక్ట్గా. నాకు I'm not able to follow actually, otherwise I will answer.
So previously politicians, they are completely service oriented, sir. They are not related to any business. They are not, they haven't taken business as their profession.
Okay, right, okay. Politics as a business or profession.
Yes, sir. But now what's happening is most of the politicians, they are careerly related to business. So there is a direct link between their business and their vested interest and the decisions taken in the parliament. So how can government come up with steps so that this link can be dropped down?
See, normally what happens when a person joins politics, he is supposed to resign from the position of the chairman or managing director of a company. That is the norm expected of them. So if they do not do it, public, if they are vigilant, they should know why this is being. But in certain cases, they have to necessarily resign. For example, MPs, etc., if they are actually, they have to resign from the position because they cannot hold an office of profit. So this is very essential. Usually what happens is many people do it binami. They don't actually do it directly, but keep someone in their place who runs it on their behalf. And now what is going to happen in future is, if more and more professionals enter politics, in big countries and very good countries, what happens? People who have done well in any profession, or come to the top of the profession, those people only are elected as MPs. In India, people with money are elected, or people belonging to a caste or community are elected, and not necessarily on the basis of their knowledge, their skills, their profession. They are not. Whereas, strictly if the people are educated and more people exercise their voting power properly, then we can see that only meritorious people will be actually coming up there. Now for the first time in urban areas, younger people are voting. Now you have seen in Delhi elections also, for the first time, a change has come about. So unless we are able to bring about that change, till that time, we have to live with this one. Only thing is, increasingly, I expect in urban areas, the voting patterns will be different from the rural areas. This is one very important thing. Second thing is, that we must actually have more number of whistleblowers, people who will actually take use of the RTI Act, and people who will go in for public interest litigation, so that all these things which are done secretly can be brought out, in which case people will not vote for them, and that is the best way of actually improving the politics.
Sir, my
Yeah.
name is Karthik, sir.
Yeah,
I'm a physiotherapist from Apollo Hospital.
yeah,
Sir, I have a doubt regarding companies bill, sir.
yeah.
What is the difference between previous Company Act and latest Company Act? And what are the major points that are focused?
See, one is they wanted the act to be in line with the acts elsewhere in the world. Two, they thought too many amendments, etc. had been, therefore the continuity of the act was lost, and now we must have a relatively smaller act. So it is relatively a smaller act because it's been concise. Second, this act makes one important change, and that change is, earlier every single thing required an act to be passed by way of an amendment to existing thing. Today what they have said is, what is the substantive law has been kept in the Companies Act, and many of the small minor changes that can be done according to the requirements of the day, that they have said by notifications the central government can do it. Second, they have also liberalized and saying what are things which the company itself can do, what are things which alone need come to the government of India. Then they have also said what should be the powers of the company law board, what should be the powers of the tribunals. They have actually made it clear. And they have also actually introduced the concepts of corporate governance. They have also clarified certain sections pertaining to various issues that come up. And therefore what I would recommend, large number of newspapers, magazines have brought out the salient features of the new Companies Act. And they have also brought out what is the difference between the old act and the new act. I would recommend that you actually go through first the salient features of the old act, salient features of the new act, and then you look at what are the changes that have actually been brought about. Then it will be easy for you to comprehend what is actually happening. Even in the act, all the portions of the act have not been publicized till now. Only 8 chapters of the new companies law have been published. The other things are going to be published shortly. For that also, they wanted actually to circulate it and get the opinion of the people before they actually finalize it. So it is now open for people to give their opinions on the remaining portions before they formally notify it.
Sir, one more second note I have about the auditing system, sir. We have internal audit and external audit.
Okay.
So, don't you think that there are manipulations done in internal audit?
The idea of external audit is to find out what are the manipulations internal audit has done. And there is also, in addition to that, systems audit. Then there is also cost audit. So what happens is, unless the cost audit figures are reconciled with the financial figures which statutory auditor does, statutory auditor's financial figures, cost auditor's costing figures, and internal audit figures, all of them have to be reconciled. So it is not that easy. Internal audit, the maximum period you can keep it under cover is till the audit is done by the statutory audit, which is for 3 months, or at the end of the year. So one day or the other it is going to come out actually.
But still, flaws can be found in external audit, sir.
Huh?
After the internal audit also, still
Yeah.
flaws can be found in external audit.
Oh yes. You see, what happens is, if the board is not satisfied with the internal audit, they can call for an external internal audit also. That means, supposing internal audit means I have one auditor or 2 auditors in my company to audit my accounts internally. And they internally give a report. And usually these reports will be delay in some matter, not pursuing something, not collecting some receivables. This will be the type of thing. But then what happens, we can appoint an external internal auditor. He will only go through the internal audits. And he will give his view or opinion on that thing. If you are not satisfied with even the external internal auditor, you can ask a specific thing on which you have a doubt, you can ask another person to do a special audit. Or you can ask the statutory auditor also to audit it. So there are ample methods by which you can actually have a recheck done. I told you, in company law, you can have a chairman, you can have an MD. Here, first of all, APSRT is not a company. We are talking of corporate government. It is a corporation. Corporation by a statute. An act has created the AP State Transport Board. There are two acts actually. One is a central government has got State Transport Corporations Act. Under that act, the Government of India gives support and help to the state corporation. That is the main act, mother act. Each state has its own state corporations act. So APSRTC Act is a state act passed by the AP state. And we have a Government of India Act called the State Transport Corporations Act. Right? That is why some person from the Government of India also sits on the transport board here. And they also released funds to them. In this AP State Transport, the corporation has provided for a chairman. It has also provided for an MD. The chairman's is provided normally where companies come into direct contact with a large number of public and where the public interest has to be protected. After all, you have got more than 18,000 buses. You have to cover 16,000 villages in India. Many people will have, if the corporation MD is not doing his well, if I complain to the MD who are not doing his job well, he will just not bother. But supposing there is a chairman who is actually an MLA or something, and he knows that this fellow can actually raise a problem in the assembly, and at the same time he has been elected, and he knows what is what, and he says, what happened to that? Those villagers met me, they said that this route has not been started. Then he will be on the mat, isn't it? So first of all, understand, corporation is different from a company. And in the case of APSRTC, there is a central act and a state act.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, my question is on disinvestments of the PSUs recently decision taken by the government.
Management of?
Disinvestment of companies, sir. Disinvestment.
Delimiting, The disinvestment, okay, right, disinvestment.
Sir,
See, your pronunciation I'm not able to follow. I studied in an English convent school. So I actually can follow if it is disinvestment. Disinvestment is the correct word, yeah.
Sir, actually government wants to go for disinvestment.
Disinvestment, you pronounce it properly.
Disinvestment.
The interview is very important, disinvestment.
Disinvestment to contain the fiscal deficit. But actually this, what bearing will have, what effect will have it on the companies, sir, on the working of the companies? And moreover, in what kind of sectors should government focus on disinvestment, and in what other sectors it should not go for?
See, disinvestment by government can take place only in the companies where it owns shares, isn't it? If it does not own shares, it can't disinvest. Right. Companies earlier, government's policy was 100% must be owned by the government. That is 100% government-owned company. It is called state-owned companies, SOEs. Then they said it is not necessary to have 100%. Even with 51%, it is enough. So they said, I can actually disinvest in my company by selling my shares. From 100%, I bring it down to 51. Supposing all the shares I sell it at one time, there may not be that many shareholders to purchase all the shares at one time. So I must only sell that much shares for which there is a market demand, only that much shares which will give me a good price, and I must also sell the shares only when the share is having a good price. You understand? So these principles have to be kept in mind when I am actually going to sell a share. This is called disinvestment. Disinvestment can be done, one, when the government wants the money for some other job. If it wants for some other job, government wants the money. Then, Parliament must agree, because we are a socialist country, socialist state. So they will say, what is this socialism when you are selling away government property? Should you sell away government property? So this is one question that is asked. So the government has to think carefully and say, why is it I am disinvesting? If I disinvest in companies which are not doing well, it makes sense. But why should I disinvest companies which are making profits? By disinvesting, I am losing the dividends on those shares. So one question comes, what companies should I disinvest? What companies I should not disinvest? But unless you disinvest in good companies, you won't get any money. So government is in a dilemma. It needs money, and therefore it wants to sell. And therefore it is saying, I'll go into the market. Every time the government